In the sterile glass and steel canyons of the city, Isabella Vance commanded an empire from the 80th floor. Her world was a symphony of hushed phone calls, stock tickers, and the deferential silence of her subordinates. Her hands, always perfectly manicured, signed deals that shifted markets. Her heart, however, remained a fortress, its gates sealed long ago by a betrayal that had taught her to trust only in profit margins and shareholder value. Miles away, in a small third-floor apartment that smelled of oil and warm laundry, Leo polished a pair of worn-out work boots. His world was one of quiet integrity, defined by the squeak of his janitorial cart and the bright, unblemished love of his 7-year-old daughter, Maya. His hands, calloused and often smudged with grease, could fix anything from a leaky faucet to the intricate gears of a discarded clock. They were hands that remembered a different life, a life of prestige and code, a life he had purposefully buried under a mountain of humility. The gala for Vance Innovation's new Odyssey AI platform was the pinnacle of Isabella's career. As she stood at the podium, a vision in black silk, the massive screens behind her flickered and died. A wave of murmurs rippled through the opulent ballroom. Then, a single ominous message in stark red text filled every display. "Your empire is a ghost." Panic erupted. Her top engineers, a team of pedigreed geniuses, huddled around a terminal, their faces pale. "It's a complete lockout," one stammered. "The core code is rewriting itself. We can't get in." Isabella's composure was a mask of ice, but inside, a cold dread spread. This was ruin, public and absolute. From the edge of the room, pushing his cart of cleaning supplies, Leo watched. He heard the fragments of their panicked jargon. Polymorphic encryption, brute force failure, and understood it all. He saw the pattern they missed, the elegant, cruel simplicity of the attack. He walked forward, the squeak of his cart's wheel cutting through the tension. "It's a cascading logic bomb tied to a ghost demon in the kernel," he said, his voice calm and even. "You're trying to disarm the warhead while ignoring the tripwire." Isabella turned, her eyes blazing with fury at the interruption. She saw only a janitor, a nobody, stepping out of his place. "And who are you to offer an opinion?" she snapped, her voice dripping with disdain. "Get back to your duties." Leo met her gaze without flinching. "My name is Leo, and I can stop it." A collective gasp went through the huddle of engineers. Isabella laughed, a short, sharp, bitter sound. "You? You can stop this?" She gestured to the frantic, sweating professionals. "These are the best minds in the country. What makes you think you can do what they can't?" He simply pointed at the screen. "Because they're looking at the fortress wall. I'm looking at the loose stone in the foundation." Desperation made Isabella reckless. She would make an example of this man's arrogance. "Fine," she declared, her voice ringing through the silent room. "You have 5 minutes. The whole world is watching. If you fail, you will regret this moment for the rest of your life." She promised a shocking outcome, a public humiliation. What she received was a miracle. Leo set aside his cart, removed his worn work gloves, and sat at the emergency terminal. The crowd watched, a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity on their faces. His fingers, thick and calloused from manual labor, hovered over the keyboard for a moment. They seemed impossibly clumsy for the delicate task at hand. Then, they moved. It wasn't just typing. It was a fluid, impossibly fast dance. Lines of code, a language foreign and arcane to most, flooded the command prompt. He wasn't fighting the attack. He was conversing with it, anticipating its every move, weaving a counter-narrative in the digital ether. Isabella's lead engineer, a man with 3 degrees from the world's top tech university, stared, his jaw slack. That's not a known language," he whispered in awe. "He's writing in pure machine hex. No one does that anymore. It's theoretical." Leo's face was a mask of concentration. He bypassed layers of malicious code, not by breaking them, but by using their own logic against them, turning them into inert, harmless strings of data. He was a surgeon performing a microscopic operation on the system's heart. With a final, decisive keystroke, he leaned back. The red text vanished. The Odyssey AI's elegant logo bloomed back to life on every screen. A wave of relieved applause swept through the ballroom, but Isabella didn't hear it. She was staring at Leo, this janitor, who had just dismantled a multi-million-dollar cyber weapon in less than 3 minutes with nothing but a keyboard and an intellect that defied comprehension. The public test had ended not with his humiliation, but with her utter, world-shaking astonishment. Who was this man? The next day, Isabella's office was a command center, but the enemy was no longer a hacker. It was a ghost. She had her security team run a background check on Leo. The results were a blank wall. He had a social security number issued 10 years ago, a driver's license, a spotless rental history, and a tax record for janitorial work. Before that, he simply didn't exist. "It's impossible," her head of security said. "A man like this with these skills doesn't just appear. He's a phantom." Isabella leaned back in her leather chair, the skyline of the city sprawling beneath her. The broken system wasn't just her servers, it was her entire worldview. She had built her empire on the belief that value was quantifiable, listed on a resume, reflected in a university's prestige. This man, with his quiet dignity and earth-shattering talent, was a living refutation of her entire philosophy. That afternoon, a small folded piece of construction paper appeared on her desk, delivered by her assistant with a puzzled expression. Isabella opened it. It was a child's drawing of her skyscraper, with a big, wobbly, smiling sun above it. At the bottom, in blocky letters, it read, "Thank you for letting my dad fix your computer. Maya." The simple, heartfelt innocence of it struck Isabella with a force the cyber attack never could. It was a message from a world she had forgotten existed, a world of gratitude, not transactions. It was the first crack in the fortress around her heart. She found Leo that evening in the building's sublevel, meticulously cleaning the very server room he had saved. "Maya has a talent for art," Isabella said, holding up the drawing. Her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. Leo looked up from his work, a small, proud smile touching his lips. "She gets it from her mother." An unspoken sadness hung in the air between them. Isabella took a breath. "I ran a check on you. There's nothing to find." He didn't seem surprised. That was the point. "Who are you, Leo? Really?" He stopped his work and finally met her gaze. The humility was still there, but beneath it was a flicker of the immense power she'd witnessed. "My name used to be Kalen Reed." The name hit Isabella like a physical blow. Kalen Reed was a legend, a myth in the cybersecurity world, a prodigy who had designed the most secure data encryption algorithm ever created, the Aegis protocol, before vanishing without a trace a decade ago. "They said you were dead," she whispered. "I needed them to," he said quietly. "My algorithm, Aegis, it was meant to protect, to create digital sanctuaries. But Marcus Thorne, he found a way to weaponize it." Marcus Thorne. The name was a scar on Isabella's own past, her former fiancé, the man whose betrayal had taught her to be ruthless, the CEO of her biggest rival, Thorne Dynamics. "He used it to steal research from a medical foundation," Leo continued, his voice heavy with grief. "A cure for a rare disease. My wife was part of that research team, the stress, the fallout. She had a weak heart. We lost her. He had disappeared, taking his daughter, burying his genius, and vowing never to let his creations cause harm again. Suddenly, the attack on Vance Innovations wasn't random. It was a message. And now they had a common enemy. "He's not just after my company, is he?" Isabella said, the pieces clicking into place. "He's hunting you." Leo nodded grimly. "This was a test. He knows I'm here, and he's coming to finish what he started." An alliance was no longer a choice. It was a necessity. The CEO and the janitor, bound by a shared past and a looming threat. Their first move was to turn Isabella's office into a digital war room. She brought in a secure, closed-loop system, and Leo, for the first time in a decade, let his true self emerge. He worked with a quiet, ferocious intensity. His simple, reliable tools, a beat-up laptop and a custom-coded operating system, stood in stark contrast to the sleek, expensive technology of Vance Innovations. "He's using a modified version of Aegis," Leo explained, his fingers flying across the keyboard, bringing up lines of code that shimmered on the screen. "He's built a backdoor into the original protocol. It's how he bypassed your firewalls. He's not breaking in. He's using a key I didn't know I had made." Isabella, using her corporate intelligence network, began pulling financial records and communication logs on Thorne Dynamics. Marcus is preparing for a hostile takeover, she said, pointing to a series of shell corporations buying up her company's stock. He plans to devalue the company, make it look like my leadership is failing, and then sweep in and buy the wreckage for pennies on the dollar. Their first attempt to trace the attack's origin led them to a decoy server farm in another country. It was a digital dead end, a trap designed to waste their time. While they were chasing the ghost, Marcus made a public statement expressing deep concern over the security vulnerabilities at Vance Innovations, subtly poisoning the well with investors. They had lost the first round. That night, exhausted and frustrated, Isabella found Leo in the company cafeteria with Maya, who was happily coloring while her father ate a sandwich. "We hit a wall," Isabella said, slumping into a chair. Maya looked up from her drawing. "When my tower falls down, Daddy helps me build it again, but stronger." She slid her drawing across the table. It was a picture of the three of them, Leo, Isabella, and herself, holding hands. In a world of corporate espionage and digital ghosts, the child's simple truth was a beacon. "She's right," Leo said, looking at Isabella. "He thinks we'll play defense. It's time to go on the attack." The setback only hardened their resolve. Leo dove deeper into the dark web, the shadowy corners of the internet, where his ghost identity still held some sway. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was Kalen Reed, and whispers of his return began to circulate among the elite black hat and white hat communities. He put out feelers, using old contacts and encrypted channels, hunting for any sign of Marcus's custom Aegis exploit. Meanwhile, Isabella shifted her strategy from defense to offense. She initiated a quiet buyback of company stock, creating a financial buffer. She also used her considerable influence to plant seeds of doubt about Marcus Thorne in the media, commissioning investigative journalists to look into his past dealings. "Marcus is arrogant," Isabella stated, pacing her office as Leo worked. "His weakness has always been his ego. He needs to gloat, to show everyone how clever he is." Leo's screen suddenly flashed. He had found something. "He's not just using the exploit," Leo said, his voice grim. "He's selling it to a consortium of rogue states. He's planning to use the attack on you as a live-fire demonstration for his buyers." The full scope of the plan was horrifying. Marcus wasn't just trying to ruin Isabella. He was planning to commit global-scale corporate and governmental espionage, with Vance Innovations as his stage. The annual shareholder meeting was in 3 days, broadcast live across the world. "That's his stage," Isabella said, her blood running cold. "He'll trigger the final attack during the meeting. He'll cripple us live on air, proving the power of his weapon to his buyers and destroying my company in a single stroke." The pieces were all there: the public humiliation, the stock collapse, the hostile takeover, and the sale of a devastating cyber weapon. It was a checkmate in every direction. But they now saw the whole board. "He's expecting me to fight the breach," Leo said, a new dangerous light in his eyes. "He's anticipating my defense. He's laid traps for Kalen Reed." He stood up and walked to the panoramic window overlooking the city. "But he's not going to get a fight. He's going to get a mirror." The plan was audacious, simple, and utterly brilliant. They wouldn't try to block the attack. They would welcome it. Leo would create a digital honeypot, a quarantine section of the network that looked and felt like the company's core systems. When Marcus triggered his exploit, this honeypot would absorb it, but it would also do something else. "The exploit needs a two-way connection to function," Leo explained to Isabella. "It sends a signal, and it needs a confirmation handshake to activate. When he sends his signal, I'm not going to send a confirmation back. I'm going to use his own connection to send a payload of my own." Isabella's role was to set the stage. She moved the shareholder meeting to the main auditorium, the very room where Leo had first been challenged. She ensured every major news outlet was present. She would deliver her annual address, acting as if nothing was wrong, luring Marcus into a false sense of security. It was a high-wire act with no safety net. If Leo's code failed, if Marcus detected the trap, the company would be annihilated in front of a global audience. The night before the meeting, Isabella found Leo staring at Maya's drawing, which he had pinned to the wall of their makeshift command center. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. He tapped the drawing of the three of them holding hands. "We are," he replied. The day of the shareholder meeting was electric with tension. Isabella stood at the podium, poised and confident, delivering a powerful speech about the future of Vance innovations. In a small control room backstage, Leo sat at his terminal, his face illuminated by the glow of the screen. He was the ghost in the machine, waiting. Marcus Thorne watched the broadcast from his own sterile boardroom, a smug smile on his face, his hand hovering over the button that would bring his rival to her knees. As Isabella reached the climax of her speech, he pressed it. On the massive screen behind Isabella, the Odyssey AI logo flickered. A gasp went through the audience. The red text began to form, but then it stopped. The screen went black for a single, heart-stopping second. When it came back on, it wasn't the hacker's message or the company logo. It was Marcus Thorne's private encrypted server, its contents laid bare for the world to see. Emails detailing the planned takeover, bank transfers from the rogue states, chat logs with his buyers, even the source code of his weaponized Aegis exploit. All of it streamed across the screen. Leo hadn't just blocked the attack, he had turned it inside out, hijacking the signal and projecting Marcus's entire criminal enterprise onto the stage. In his boardroom, Marcus stared in horror as his empire crumbled in real time. The smug smile was gone, replaced by a mask of pure panic. The trap had sprung, the mirror had shown him for what he was. Isabella Vance stood at the podium, not as a victim, but as a victor, watching as justice was delivered, not by a court, but by a line of perfect, irrefutable code. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Marcus Thorne was arrested, his company imploded under the weight of federal investigations, and his buyers vanished back into the shadows. Vance Innovations, far from collapsing, saw its stock soar to unprecedented heights, its security now proven to be the most robust in the world. The story of the janitor who saved the company became a media sensation, but Isabella made sure the true narrative was told. At a press conference, she didn't just give Leo credit. She introduced him to the world as Kalen Reed, the genius who had returned from the shadows to protect the very technology he had created. Mr. Reed's integrity is the bedrock of this company's future, she announced, which is why I have asked him to join us, not just as an employee, but as a partner. He will be leading our new division of ethical technology as Chief Innovation Officer. The offer hung in the air, a return to the life he had left behind. The world expected him to accept, to reclaim his throne. Leo stepped to the microphone, his quiet presence commanding the room. I accept, he said, on two conditions. First, the division will have the power to veto any project that doesn't serve the public good. Second, my hours are 9 to 3. I never miss picking up my daughter from school. A new kind of applause filled the room, one of respect not just for his genius, but for his values. The glass walls of the 80th floor office now held a new piece of art. Next to the abstract paintings and corporate awards, in a simple, elegant frame, was a child's drawing of a skyscraper with a smiling sun. Isabella no longer saw just a building. She saw a home. Leo, dressed in a comfortable shirt instead of a suit, worked at a desk beside hers, his legendary skills now dedicated to building, not just defending. Their partnership was seamless, a blend of his grounded wisdom and her visionary ambition. But the most important merger wasn't corporate. It happened on a sunny afternoon in the park. Isabella watched as Leo pushed a laughing Maya on a swing, his face alight with a joy no promotion could ever provide. She had spent a decade building an empire of glass and steel, only to find that true strength was built from trust, integrity, and love. She walked over, and Leo smiled, a genuine, open smile that reached his eyes. Maya jumped off the swing and ran to Isabella, grabbing her hand. Then, she reached out and took her father's. The three of them stood there for a moment, a perfect, unspoken union. The CEO, the janitor, and the wise child, who had taught them both how to build a stronger tower. Have you ever wondered if the greatest talents are hidden in the most unlikely places? This story reminds us that a person's worth is not defined by their title, but by their character and the light they bring into the world. Share this with someone who believes in the power of second chances and the quiet strength of a good heart. For in the end, what we build within ourselves is the only empire that truly lasts.